Sports and TV show streams going live on YouTube, streaming live on YouTube. I'm going to switch to front camera. Okay, now I'm going to do full episodes of Rescue 911, do Commando IPTV, do the catch up. I just had to switch this to sports and sports and Okay, we are going live. I'm going to put my iPad in the stand now. I had to switch it to front camera, otherwise you wouldn't see the television screen. Okay. Now I'll go to Commando TV, IPTV. Go to catch up. Go to US Entertainment.
Stop dancing into dust, I shall return.
Post haste.
We danced, I held the world in my hands. When I get to heaven, I'll have been there before, 'cause it couldn't be more than when we danced.
Today on Rescue 911, a trooper down. The rescue of a trooper shot on the highway continues.
I just thought, I'm gonna sit here and watch this person die.
With his flaming car off the road, rescuers must pull him from the wreckage.
Very close to dead right then.
Then, when a hiker falls into a dangerous mountain pool,
I can't let my friend die in front of him.
rescuers race to lift him from rough terrain on Rescue 911.
When Idaho State Trooper Stephen Hobbs was shot during a routine traffic stop in a remote area, his life was in the hands of the passing motorists who stopped to help. But there was little hope that they'd be able to keep him alive long enough to get him the medical care he desperately needed.
Everybody was doing whatever they could. Sherry was trying to cradle his head a little bit, make it more comfortable.
His lips started to go blue, and it wasn't too long after that his breathing stopped entirely. I just thought to myself, okay, here we go. I'm going to try to remember how to do this.
Come on, get from there, boy. Come on.
She would give him a breath of air. Then I could see him breathing. And then it would quit. So then she would do it again.
I was really getting worried because there was no sign of any help coming, and I just thought, I'm going to sit here and watch this person die.
Off-duty EMT John Cook and his brother happened to be driving by on their way home from vacation.
You could see the flames shooting up pretty high. I really didn't know what I was coming up on. I had my trauma kit in the back. I figured I better find out what's going on.
I looked up, and here come a guy running across the street with a black bag. And that was really a relief. I thought, man, we got some help. Somebody that knows something,
Where's he been shot at?
We got a bullet hole right here.
He was hurting very badly, and he was in a very deep state of shock. Because his brain wasn't receiving enough oxygen, he was getting very combative.
It's all right. It's all right. Come on, Doug, get some stuff over there.
And I had my brother Bill putting some gauze on each hole that he could see and putting pressure on it.
Did anybody ask for help?
I didn't know if help was coming. I did grab his police radio and tried to use it several times.
Is anybody there? Is anybody there?
And didn't find one channel that worked.
You guys can't get anybody.
I knew what I was lacking, and that was advanced life support. So my only other option was to move him to the nearest town.
Here comes an RV.
Flag him down.
Gerald Jepson and his wife were driving by pulling a trailer.
I'm not the type that usually stops to get involved with anything, but when they came running towards the truck, just seeing the look on their face, I knew that we had to do it.
Six of us picked up the trooper and took him in.
They was moving him pretty fast. He was just white and lifeless. It scared me pretty bad that he was pretty close to dead right then.
Yeah, let's go.
Then somebody says, drive ICAL as fast as this thing will go to Snowville.
All of a sudden, he started saying, I just want to die. I just want to die. And at that point, I started getting very scared and very nervous because when people give up, it's only a matter of time.
Everybody was saying, don't give up now. Think of your children and your wife. That was like a cheering section. Just really in there with their whole body and soul.
A state trooper picked up Jan Hobbs to take her to her husband.
I was scared to death. I wanted to be able to tell him that I loved him before he might never hear me say that again.
There were no medical facilities in Snowville. Rescuers worked for 45 minutes trying to keep Trooper Steve Hobbs going long enough for an air ambulance to get to the scene.
We stood there by the door hoping to hear some good news, and finally they said, well, we got his blood pressure back, we got a pulse back.
That was the biggest relief of my life. And he was still alive.
Steve was airlifted to the trauma unit of McKay-Dee Hospital. By the time he arrived, more than 2 hours had passed since the shooting. His wife arrived soon after.
When I saw him, he was white, like a dolphin white color. I told him that I loved him, and I just wanted him to hang in there for me and the kids.
We're gonna need to go.
The emergency physician Ivan Wright examined Steve's x-rays to determine the extent of the damage done by the bullets.
X-rays. This is the initial X-ray that we took. He had injury to both lungs, and he had a significant injury to the artery in his arm. Right. This is dye in the artery going into his arm, and as you see, it comes down to here and stops. That's where he's bleeding from. The axillary artery was almost totally severed. To be honest, I'm quite amazed that he survived.
A year has passed. For Steve Hobbs and his family, the healing continues. Doctors were able to partially repair severed nerves in his right arm, but he has only limited use of that hand. Due to lack of oxygen, Steve also suffered some short-term memory impairment, as well as permanent loss of 50% of his vision.
There are times when I just feel like I'm going to explode inside because I can't do the things that I used to be able to do. And it's very hard. My daughter always tells me, chill out. So there's a lot of times where I just have to go off by myself and sit down and try and collect myself again. So there's been quite a few changes I've had to try and make with my life.
Since he's been shot, it's been kind of a role reversal. He's used to being the provider, and now he's home with the kids. But we've all learned how to deal with it. Steve means everything to me. He is my other half. I just will never be able to repay the people who took the time to rescue Steve. I never knew there were so many people that cared.
The first time I met Steve, after all this happened, there was no feeling ever like it before. Knowing that I did something for this guy that would keep him around.
The man Steve pulled over that night had been driving a stolen car. He pleaded guilty to 3 felonies and was sentenced to 40 years in prison. The incident has affected all the people who got involved that night.
This changed me quite a bit. I haven't had a low opinion of policemen, but I stay away from them. But this has really made me realize what they go through. We see a cop car and we automatically let off the gas and hope we get by them. We don't realize the dangers they're living under to try to protect us.
I guess the best reward that we ever had was the party for him at the Twin Falls when they put us with 4 of their little boys. These little kids, they were happy and smiling. And of course I couldn't help remembering when I was their age. I was on the scene when my dad had an accident and he died. So I was raised without one, and they had theirs.
Don't fall down.
And to me, that's all that counted.
Next.
As we were coming to the waterfalls, we were looking up there going, this doesn't look too safe. I mean, we actually said that. I said, God, if someone came off that, they'd be dead. I mean, it'd be all over with, no questions about it.
These are the times.
When the laughs come from the heart.
Years of experience. You can count on us to be.
Jay Rassey was hiking up to Angel Falls with his
40 years of experience. You can count on us to be there all along the way. With a dual complete plan, you could have a wide choice of doctors to choose from, better prescription drug coverage, dental and vision coverage too, all at no additional cost. You have Medicare, you have Medicaid. You may be eligible for dual complete. So call the number on your screen now to see if you're eligible, or to enroll in a dual complete plan from United Healthcare.
Join the Bunkers for some family time, all in the family, weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern.
We begin on the afternoon of August 26, 1991, in the hills above Fresno, California.
Jay Rassey was hiking up to Angel Falls with his 2 sons.
I've been coming to Bass Lake since I was a little boy, and I've fallen down many times in that stream, and I've cracked my knees and cracked my head, and I've learned to respect the slippery rocks.
David Salinas and John Kubar had grown up in the area and known each other for years, but they'd never explored Angel Falls.
As we were coming up to the waterfalls, we were looking up there going, this doesn't look too safe. I mean, we actually said that. I said, God, if someone came off that, they'd be dead. I mean, it'd be all over with, no questions about it. Except for the top pool. The top pool looks safe.
Those rocks are actually water polished to a real fine sheen. They're like glass.
I'm bonsaiing this one.
We said hi to them, and we just kind of went on our way. They were swimming in some of the pools up there.
We slid down a couple times into the water, and then he moved over to the side, and he was like going to take a little different route down there. There's signs at the top that said, danger, men have been killed here, people have died here. And if we would have saw that sign, we wouldn't have went anywhere near it.
Oh, man.
He thought he was going to go sideways into this pool, but from my position across the canyon, I could see exactly what was going to happen. He was going to go straight down.
You couldn't see down below the rocks. There was 3 pools down there, and I did not think I was going to be able to find it.
When we continued,
I was reaching around the field for a leg or body or anything. I was just reaching, feeling. But I thought,
Car Shield, no matter how your cash flow is at the time, you'll have
I looked and he wasn't there, and all the time is going by. And then climbing up to the next place, I looked into a rock pool that's maybe 15 feet in diameter, and I could see human hair.
You're breaking the bottom! We gotta get him! We gotta get him!
He got airborne, he just went, phew. And when he hit the rocks, I heard the crack of his leg.
I was reaching around the field for a leg or body or anything. I was just reaching, feeling. And I thought, I pray he's not dead. Third time, I don't know what it was. I just shot all the way to the bottom. I pulled with all my might, and he came out. His head was bleeding. I didn't hear any breathing, or I didn't feel any breathing.
I think he was down a good 3 minutes. And as we pulled him to me, I mean, the guy was lifeless. He was limp. His lips were blue. He obviously hadn't been breathing for a long time. To me, the guy was dead.
After clearing John's airway, David began to perform rescue breathing.
I just remember it from high school, and all of a sudden it was just, I was just doing it. It came all back to me.
He was coming to faintly and weakly and slowly. But there's no way he could lay in an icy cold stream for a couple hours and be okay.
I went to stand up, and I couldn't stand up. I looked down at my leg, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, I gotta get back. I gotta be able to get help, you know, whatever. But no way.
He says, don't leave us. And I said, well, I'm not going to leave you. I want to help you. So we just hustled down the trail as fast as we could.
Stay with me.
I was trying to keep John warm because his body was in convulsions. He was shaking.
After a 15-minute hike, Jay got back to his van. Almost immediately, he spotted a Mariposa Park ranger driving by. Word was relayed to a Madera County Sheriff's dispatcher, and within 20 minutes of the call, rescue units got to the top of the falls.
Battalion 4213 up the rescue group at scene. Get Stokes baskets ready.
Fire Battalion Chief Mike Boren headed up the operation to evacuate both victims.
We do a lot of rope rescues. We're in there 6, 7, 8 times a year at least. And the remoteness of the area leaves you hurting for a long time before anybody can get to you.
Line down that side. Let's set the annual group up there. Let's run a line right down this way.
Paramedic Ed Guzman and his partner EMT Debbie Carter worked on stabilizing John.
People go down these water slides as if they were on a ride from Magic Mountain, but there are no safety nets. He was conscious, but he was so pale and was having some trouble breathing, so I was very concerned about his airway. I was also concerned about potential head injury and about potential internal injuries.
Requesting medical helicopter to rendezvous at Patterson Landing Zone.
Normally, we wouldn't encourage people to move a victim, but they did the right thing. They had to get him out of the water. If there's a chance they're going to get hurt more, you got to move them.
He was becoming increasingly short of breath. But once water has entered the lungs, this seriously inhibits a person's ability to breathe or breathe normally. They call it parking lot drowning because a person will feel that they're fine, go home, and then in the parking lot on the way to the car, they collapse.
Right, go all right. Keep fun.
Having been there so many times before, we know that there's no part of those falls that are safe for you.
I was like, God, I almost died. Now I'm going to really die looking down.
David was taken to the hospital by ambulance with multiple leg fractures, which required reconstructive surgery. John was airlifted by Air Life Services and treated for head lacerations and a concussion, and had water pumped out of his lungs.
If John had been alone, unfortunately, he would have been found probably days later. That one CPR class David took back when was the difference in John's survival.
It's been a year since David saved John's life.
I can't say enough. He might have gone through some pain and probably still is, but all that kind of transcends the fact that I am around and he was responsible for that.
I just feel like life's so valuable. You're going to do every single thing you can just to stay alive.
I looked and he wasn't there. And all the time is going by. And then climbing up to the next place. I looked into a rock pool that's
The suspect had to be rescued from a situation he created himself from a crime. I think that's pretty funny. I like it. It's a good ending.
On July 25th, the suspect pled guilty to vandalism and trespassing and was sentenced to 2 years probation and 150 hours of community service.
Today on Rescue 911, terror on the tracks. 2 teens driving in heavy fog are struck by a train.
If it wasn't for the screaming, I would have swore I was looking at a dead person.
Now, rescuers must battle the elements to save them.
Doug, the chopper can't fly. Not even airline?
Then, an Idaho trooper is shot on a routine stop. Rescuers must save his life when he fails to save himself. On Rescue 911.
Whenever tragedy strikes, any of us might be forced to face the fact that our world will never be the same again. I'm William Shatner. Tonight, true stories of courage, strength, and love on Rescue 911. We begin on the evening of November 11th, 1991 in Seymour, Iowa, as Stephanie Chico invited her 15-year-old nephew and close friend, Dustin Kirkland, to go for a drive.
It was maybe 31 degrees. The streets had like a thin layer of ice. There really wasn't a lot of snow, but it was so foggy. I mean, you actually couldn't see the length of your driveway. It was so foggy.
Dustin had his learner's permit and was determined to get some driving practice.
Come on, Steph, let me drive.
Okay, sure. He's always been a good kid. He's been a good teenager. He's into sports. And that was his whole life, and I thought, why? Why did this happen to my son?
No kidding.
Come on now.
Working in Seymour as a first responder sometimes is good and sometimes is not so good because you run into a lot of people you know, their friends, their family.
All day, every day.
Don't that make you feel good?
It's time to spend more time with the ones we love. Get TV.
When a freight train traveling 35 miles an hour slammed into a car carrying 19-year-old Stephanie Chico and her nephew Dustin Kirkland, a woman who saw the crash ran to the nearest house to get help.
Stephanie's boyfriend, David McCann, happened to live there.
My father heard a knock on the door, and there was a lady there who said there'd been an accident. There was a car under the train.
A call for help went out as David and his father headed to the scene.
My father and I both realized it was Stephanie's voice. She was pure white and covered with blood. If it wasn't for the screaming, I would have swore I was looking at a dead person.
One of the first rescuers to arrive was Deputy Sheriff Vernon Brown.
I just took a few steps, towards the rear of the car, and I seen another body then laying in the ditch. You could hear him kind of gurgling, and I said something about, does anybody know who it is? And Larry McCann said, yeah, it's Dustin Kirkland.
Working in Seymour as a first responder sometimes is good and sometimes is not so good because you run into a lot of people you know, their friends, their family.
Seymour Fire Department volunteers EMT Teresa DeVore and her husband paramedic Doug DeVore were the first medical people on the scene.
First time I seen Stephanie, I thought that her spine had been broke and twisted 180 degrees. Then I realized that it was her legs. Actually, her toes were sticking into the ground.
Vernie was hollering because he had found Dustin. His head was bleeding really bad. Vernon's brother came up to the scene, so we at that time had him apply direct pressure with gauze on his forehead. And when he did that, we found another huge laceration around the back of his head.
He ran one hand back and he says, "Oh my God, did you see the skull?" "Yeah, I did." I said, "But we got to go on." Dustin was going to be our star pitcher that year for the baseball team. And I did think about that, didn't think he had a chance in the world.
Bud, the chopper can't fly. Not even airline?
That just sunk in my throat because I didn't think she would make it to the hospital in time.
Why?
Dustin's father, Randy Kirkland, rushed to the scene as soon as he heard about the accident.
All I could think about is if he gets up, he ain't dead. So I was hollering at him, "Get up, Dustin, you're not hurt." But it looked like to me that his head was being held together with a bunch of bandages.
He didn't have a good airway at all. We really felt like they needed helicopters. But when they couldn't do that, it was up to us.
Both victims were transported to Wayne County Hospital. Kim Kirkland was notified that her son had been critically injured in an accident.
All I could think of was if he's going to die, then I wanted to be with him, not strangers. I said, "I'm a nurse, I'm not gonna freak out, I promise, I wanna go see him." And it was a mess.
Stephanie kept asking, "How's Dustin doing?" And I had to pull the curtain shut because I didn't want her to see what was going on. I was really worried that they'd probably have to amputate her legs. Her legs were like jello.
Doctors decided that Stephanie and Dustin needed to be transferred to the nearest trauma center 80 miles away.
They weren't gonna let me go. I thought, well, he has to be afraid. And I was just like, "Franny, I have to go, I have to go." And Bray said, "Get in, we're going."
At that point, I just became a complete wreck. They didn't know if either one of them would ever make it on up to Des Moines.
Dustin's grandmother, Norma Chico, rode in the ambulance with her daughter, Stephanie.
I kept watching to see that she was alive, and I watched for the other ambulance out my side mirror, and I didn't see it coming. I knew that if Dustin died, he'd pull off.
Are you warming up?
I was riding in the back of staff. Her blood pressure was falling, and we pretty had much everything done in the rig that we could do for her. It was just a race for time. She needed the trauma center.
Yeah, Shannon just had a birthday.
She asked me about one of my kids. She was laying there in extreme pain and critically injured, and she wanted to know about my daughter. And that's part of the closeness everybody has in this town.
At Iowa Methodist Medical Center, Dustin was examined by trauma surgeon David Sidney.
They had tried to put a tube in his throat to breathe for him, but were unsuccessful. Especially in somebody like Dustin who had a head injury. His head injury will only be made worse if he can't get enough oxygen to his brain.
There just seemed like there was a lot of things that people weren't saying to me. So I guess I was getting the hint that he ain't gonna be all right. He ain't gonna make it.
We'll be going to CT first, though, before the OR.
They prepare you for the worst. I remember they told me, "You'll never have your son again. He'll never be the same." And I didn't care. I just wanted him to live.
Stephanie underwent surgery to treat her shattered legs and elbow and a collapsed lung.
Make sure you call the chaplain.
Dustin was operated on to repair his fractured leg, but remained in a coma.
It'll be up to
We look for family support in helping the recovery of injured patients, and a mother's voice has to be the most anxiety-reducing thing.
Just try. I sat there day and night, talked to him quiet. The kids had made a tape so I could play that tape over and over so he could have familiar noises.
That was the biggest frustration, talking to him And not knowing, is he hearing any of this? And him not being able to give me a smile and wink at me like, you know, he always does. So you're full of it, Dad. And you think it's like the movies, where all of a sudden he just wakes up, opens his eyes, and everything's fine. But as usual, that wasn't the case.
Hi, Dustin.
Hi, Dustin.
I got to go visit him, and I think that was, I don't want to say better for me, but I got to see for myself. And I grabbed his hand, and he squeezed my hand.
We gotta go home, but we'll be back, okay? Get better, Dustin.
And then I remember he lifted up his hand and went like that. So I knew.
You think you are? That is good, good.
It took 3.5 weeks before Dustin was even able to communicate with hand signals.
We have no idea how it is to not be able to walk, to talk, to feed ourselves. His therapist would work with him, and he would just groan and moan because it hurt.
Mom told me that it'd all come back and just be like being a kid again, little baby. And I thought, whew, that's tough. But it's just another challenge, and I like challenges. I think it makes you better.
Throughout his recovery, Dustin's dream was to pitch again for his high school baseball team.
The very first game we played, I sat on the bench the whole time. I never sat on the bench for baseball ever. That was tough, and I went home and I cried that night. And the very next night, Coach let me pitch.
You could tell, you know, his leg was stiff. He still was pinned up and stuff. So the first batter gets up, you know, and I don't remember how many pitches he threw, but he struck him out. Second batter came up, and again, struck him out. Third batter came up, hit just a little off fly. And all of a sudden, he just threw his hand up with a glove on it. The ball fell in it. I guess it was then I knew he was going to be all right.
I'm just cool.
In the 14 months since the accident, Dustin and Stephanie have both made remarkable recoveries.
Stephanie and Dustin were close before, but they're a lot closer now. You couldn't talk about one of them bad and the other one not be ready to fight you.
We felt like we've been together through the toughest stuff, so we might as well have some fun.
Neither Stephanie nor Dustin was wearing a seatbelt the night of the accident.
If there's one thing that I could do different about that night besides not go, that'd probably be the key thing. Because if I wouldn't have been thrown the car, then I probably wouldn't have been hurt as bad.
I still to this day cannot imagine that train hitting that little car. I think they should all have bars and lights at all crossings because they're bigger than you are. And they hurt you very badly. Dustin very badly wants to go to college because he wants to be a coach. It's hard for him to take tests because of the brain injury, but he signs up for all the extra credit that he can get to bring his grade up.
It's been hard, I know, for both of us. It won't be the same, but I can live with a little limp. I mean, it doesn't really bother me all that much. I have a rod and pin collection. I was gonna make wind chimes out of them, but someone said that was too morbid, so, but they're stainless steel, they would last in the weather.
Everything was against them, everything from when we got to the scene and they told us the choppers couldn't fly, to Dustin's injuries, to Stephanie's injuries, and they both made it. Those kids are miracles.
I gotta go take a shower. Oh, God.
Next.
He's officer in trouble. I need help. My stomach went through the floor. I didn't know for sure what.
You should do it because you matter. You should do it for all the right reasons, that your life is going to change.
I need to see you again.
Right back, no. And put one of those frowny faces with the angry eyes.
Hot in Cleveland, weeknights at 6 p.m. Eastern on Get TV. And on the 7th day, you were given Walker. Walker, Texas Ranger. Now every Sunday from 6 to 10 p.m. Eastern on Get TV.
The dangers police officers face every day are not always obvious, as Idaho State Trooper Stephen Hobbs discovered on the night of June 15th, 1991, while patrolling a remote stretch of highway near the Utah border.
They think he saw a car speeding behind him. He got over so this car wouldn't see him.
Down there south, the suites are going over the summit. There's about a mile in there where the road's right between the two mountains. And that radio area down there's not the best. So he didn't check out on the stop.
Idaho State Police Dispatcher Dee Silver was nearing the end of her shift.
I just want... Hold on just a minute. I heard somebody screaming over the radio. Did you hear what I said? I knew whatever it was I heard wasn't right.
Corporal DeLon Jones was also on patrol that night.
Did you copy that? No, I didn't. 475 control.
He said, "Officer in trouble, I need help." My stomach went through the floor, but I didn't know for sure where he was at.
522, he's south of Sweets. They're screaming for help. I know where his location is.
I just turned cold. I was the closest police officer to Steve, and I was almost 70 miles away.
I kept thinking that maybe he had a drunk or something that was fighting him.
475 control.
The longer it went, the scarier I got. I started calling the bosses and got them both going that way. And then I called an ambulance. The hardest part was not knowing what kind of trouble was he in.
475 control.
Floyd Vabel and his family were on their way home in 2 cars from a family reunion.
I can't even see some dust and smoke coming up there.
I looked up and there was smoke billowing up about a mile and a half up ahead. When we got up there, we could see that there was a patrol car on fire.
Oh my hell. Look at that. Get around there, Brian. Turn around.
My wife stopped in front of us.
Keep it going.
We really couldn't see inside, but there was nobody standing around. I could hear my son say, "Dad, it's going to blow up." And then I thought, well, if there's somebody in there, I better get at it. I grabbed him, and he was just soaked with blood all the way down here. And I asked him what happened, and he said, shot. I found...
I need to see you again. Right back.
throw a party, you said. You'll have a great time, you said. What?
Woken up to even see him float by, he would have just floated by and nobody would have known a thing. When I see Bella today, it's just, you know, we almost have a special bond now too.
Bella. Uncle Johnny saved me.
This is our hero.
Today on Rescue 911. Deadly cargo. A man carrying a toxic load crashes and disappears.
By 5 o'clock, I knew that something was really wrong.
Rescuers swing in with a crane on a perilous mission.
So you're gonna have one hell of an explosion.
Then, a burglar turns himself in.
I didn't mean to do a burglary, but...
He must be rescued from his own break-in on Rescue 911.
Sports car racing enthusiast James Coons had competed in events around the country for years. On March 31st, 1989, James set out on a 165-mile drive to a racetrack through the hot California desert with an extremely dangerous cargo.
My husband had his van and trailer with 8 barrels of gas and our 2 dogs, Teddy and Hillary.
I know you keep waiting for her. I'm nothing but a hound dog.
We don't have kids, those are our kids. They're the light at the center of our life.
He had no placards on it, he had no permit to be hauling that much fuel. It's a higher octane fuel, and actually the flash point on the point of ignition is a lot lower than the lower octane fuels. Several areas there are bad winds that will catch high-profile vehicles and they will go over. Winds were blowing through the canyons that day at speeds up to 40 miles an hour. When we continue.
By 5 o'clock, I knew that something was really wrong. When I realized that he'd never arrived, I knew that he either had a heart attack or had an accident.
If you can't pick your family,
956-0611.
And first aid kits. And best of all, with this plan, there's no additional cost to you. Remember, if you have Medicare and Medicaid, chances are you could get a dual complete plan. So call now to talk with us and learn more. Or ask to have a licensed agent visit your home and take you through everything step by step. We know healthcare can be confusing. United Healthcare can straighten things out. With 40 years of experience, you can count on us to be there all along the way. With a dual complete plan, you could have a wide choice of doctors to choose from, better prescription drug coverage, dental and vision coverage too, all at no additional cost. You have Medicare, you have Medicaid. You may be eligible for dual complete. So call the number on your screen now to see if you're eligible, or to enroll in a dual complete plan from United Healthcare.
School's in session with the Steve Harvey Show, weekdays at 7 on Get TV.
The wreckage of the van could not be seen from the highway. Days went by, and no help came. On Sunday, when Kitty Coons returned from visiting out-of-town relatives, she expected to find her husband James at home.
I tried to say to myself, well, you know, he's talking with his buddies. He won't be home till late. By 5 o'clock, I knew that something was really wrong. And I first called a friend, and I said, what time did James leave the track last night? And she said, he never arrived. And when I realized that he'd never arrived, I knew that he'd either had a heart attack or had an accident. The sheriff's office came, and I explained to him what had happened, and he asked me a lot of questions, and it didn't really start to hit home till he started asking for a description. And I realized that they might be looking for a body. And I called my friend Karen, and I told her that James was missing, and she said she would come over. And I said, you know, I don't want to be alone if I find out he's dead, and because I really didn't have any other family. I have no brothers or sisters. I have nobody. It was James, Hillary, and Teddy. That's the only family I have.
San Diego County sheriffs, including Lieutenant George Nishaw, searched the rocky 75-mile stretch of highway.
Under the circumstances, it was something that would be appropriate to go look for him with a helicopter, because it's a long road and it's windy and windy and there's sheer cliffs on the side, and a person could crash over the edge, and people looking for him from car probably wouldn't be able to see him.
Okay, we've got a lot of wind coming across here too. Yeah. There it is.
When we first saw the van, we were real sure that it was an unsurvivable crash. The task at hand at that point was fairly grim. I had to walk up and decide whether the guy was dead or alive, and I've obviously encountered dead people before in this line of work, and after having been on desert floor for 3 days, I knew that I'd probably be able to smell him before I got real close to the van. The closer I got, I could smell something that was dead. It was real surprising. Somebody actually answered back.
Okay. Well, let me call for some help, get you some water.
I was completely shocked that he was alive, and it was quite a thrill.
The homicide officer called me to tell me that they found him, and I said, what's wrong? What's happened? And he said his van and trailer went over the side of the mountain, but he's alive. And I said, are the dogs alive? He said, I don't know, but he's alive. I said, how badly hurt? We don't know, but he's alive.
Rescue and hazardous materials teams from Imperial County arrived on the scene. Although James had managed to survive 3 days in the 90-degree heat, he was still trapped inside the crushed van. Paramedics were unable to reach James to treat him.
He could have died from dehydration. It was the hotter part of the year, so he could have died of a heat stroke. But he was oriented. He knew where he was at, and he knew what was going on.
Volunteer Fire Chief Robert Klein was one of the first on the scene.
There was too much fuel leaking and it was highly flammable. There was fumes that would burn your eyes down there. If you take one spark with those fumes, you're going to get a big flash and then all 8 drums are going to go up. So you're going to have one hell of an explosion.
The large quantities of highly flammable fuel made any attempt to rescue James extremely risky.
The extrication was put off because of the possibility of a spark. We phoned the area. We decided on removing the drums before we went any further with it.
EMT Wanda Roth made her way down to the wreck.
My assignment was basically to get to the victim. I could not see his face, the lower half of him, or anything else. I was sitting down there saying, okay, now just nobody light any cigarettes or spark off anything, because, I mean, I didn't want to be blown apart, but it was my job to sit there and talk to him, so that's what I was assigned, so that's what I did.
Because the 55-gallon drums were too dangerous to remove by hand, a 50-ton crane was brought in.
One thing, no spark.
Mike King headed the crane crew.
Our only concern was being able to take the barrels off in the right sequence. You pull the wrong one off and then the whole thing tumbled, because we were afraid that if it did, that there might be some explosion.
Night had fallen by the time the first barrel could be removed.
The crane operator, in the process of lifting those barrels off, could not see the vehicle where we had it set up. He could not see over the edge. Basically, he was told to swing left and right, boom up and down, and lower his hoist, raise his hoist. So he was basically working blind. There were some halogen-type lamps down below. We were trying to make very sure that we didn't drip any fuel on those.
Boom up! Watch out for that light! Watch out for the light! Watch out for the light!
By early evening, Kitty arrived at the scene of her husband's accident.
It was funny when I was standing there looking down, and there were literally 20, 30, 40 volunteer fire, ambulance, paramedics. And I thought, I volunteered hundreds of hours at the UCSD Medical Center. And I looked down and I thought, I've always believed what comes around goes around. There they were. There were all those hours down there coming back to me.
Look what I found. Is underneath there also?
All of a sudden, Wanda, one of the volunteers, came up, and she had my dog Hillary. And I couldn't believe it.
Hillary had stayed by her master's side on the desert floor for 3 days and 3 nights. There was no room to pry open the smashed doors. The rescuers used the crane to lift the bag so they could use the jaws of life.
Just want to watch your face when you open that door.
When we removed the door, there was one of his dogs that were dead, and it smelled pretty bad, so we removed the dog, and then we had access to communicate with the driver better.
After more than 70 hours, James was finally pulled out of the wreckage.
He had multiple contusions and abrasions throughout his entire body. He also had first-degree burns and second-degree burns to his abdomen and groin area. From the fuel being spilled on gasoline is corrosive, so it's going to cause burns if it's on you for any length of time.
Though James received skin grafts and had to have part of his foot amputated, he survived where many others had died.
I knew I was trapped. My foot had caught between the drive shaft of the steering column and the engine, but I couldn't pull my foot out of the shoe. I tried that. I figured that I could get on the CB radio or I could flash my lights, but the battery got smashed right off the front, so I had no power. I started calling for Hillary.
You okay, girl?
You could hear underneath the van something moving around.
Kind of scary, huh?
The saddest thing is when I realized Teddy was dead. It was very frustrating.
I suppose it's the way a parent feels when they do something, have a car accident, lose a child. You think, well, if I'd have left him at home, or he had been on the floor with Hillary, instead of sitting on my lap like he likes to do. I told him I was sorry. I didn't mean to do it.
9 months later, James has returned to racing.
I appreciate the chance to go on. That's the one thing that I do appreciate.
My husband survived because he's an Ozark mountain man. What kept him alive was his thinking of ways to get out. He never would believe that he could die.
Next.
It doesn't take a lot of brains to be a virgin, but this guy had none.
Are you or a...
Every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Join the Bunkers for some family time. All in the Family. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern.
In Los Angeles, May 19, 1989 at 1:29 a.m. A 911 dispatcher received a call for help, unlike any other the police had heard before. All the people involved have returned to the scene, with one obvious exception.
For 473. Yes, I'm over here at 36th and Boulevard at Glass Shop, and I have a problem here. I had broke in it. What? I had broken a glass shop, and I can't get out because there's too much glass inside in my way of the doorway. I know I shouldn't get it. I'm turning myself in. Do you have any weapons? No, I don't. I have no weapons on me. Are you black or Hispanic? Black. What are you wearing?
I didn't believe him at first. I thought it was a prank. I thought it was a kid playing on the line. You know, they do that quite a bit. So I just thought, yeah, sure, right.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do burglary, but can you tell the police officers not to use their firearms against me because I'm not armed or anything. Okay. You know, and I can't get out because there's too much glass in the door. If I step over this glass, it'll cut me very seriously. I'll be very seriously cut. Okay, we'll get somebody else.
It's not often at all that you get a call where a suspect is perpetrating his crime and he's calling in on himself.
This is not no prank call, officer, for real. This is real thing. All right, mister. Thank you. All right, we won't take long, will it? I hope not. Okay. Do you need an ambulance or anything? No, no ambulance. All right. Bye-bye. 315, 459, suspect, they're now 36. Shot 36 shots, it's inside the glass shop. He's in male black, wearing brown khaki, black jacket, and black shirt. 315, be advised the PR is a suspect, and he advises he has no weapons at the location.
When we first got the call, we thought it was just a mistake.
We sort of looked at each other and said, well, there's something wrong with this call. I had to confirm with the radio transmitter operator.
The comments indicate the PR is the suspect that he was inside of the location.
Even though in this case it appeared the suspect was the one that called, you still don't know. It could be a setup, it could be an ambush type situation. There are a lot of crazy people out there. You really can't take anything for granted.
315 requesting an airship and K-9 at our location.
Sergeants Mark Mooring and Joe Friday also took the call.
All right, partner, this is it. This one's for you. The danger on this call is increased because what's going on doesn't make any sense. Suspects don't call you and tell you where they are. We may be dealing with someone who's under the influence of PCP, and he might be have a psychological problem, be a psycho. If that's the case, we're going to need some extra people.
BD-10 is over Sepulveda Pass right now. We'll be responding to your call. We're heading on your way.
Barnes and Wong were first at the scene, followed almost immediately by the police helicopter. The chopper surveyed the area, but could find no one.
We walk up to the scene on foot, kind of use cover, and try to hide, so that if there's someone inside, they don't see you.
Once the K-9 unit arrived, 18-year veteran Mark Mooring took charge.
You guys are the ones that go in with me if we have to go in. We had a tactically bad situation. I couldn't see anything through the windows, and I felt that the suspect could probably see out.
4 additional backup units arrived. The officers quickly surrounded the property.
Even though the ordinary burglary situation is tense enough because it's a felon, now we have a felon who's not acting rational at all. Are we being set up? Is there really nobody in there and it's somebody that's behind us that wants us to pay attention this way?
It was up to Sergeant Friday to find out.
He certainly could smell the suspect inside. I developed a plan with the officers that were there to approach this location and send the dog up to the hole.
Every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Eastern.
To be rescued from a situation he created himself, from a crime, I think that's pretty funny. I like it. It's a good ending, you know?
On July 25th, the suspect pled guilty to vandalism and trespassing and was sentenced to 2 years probation and 150 hours of community service.
Let's throw a party, you said. You'll have a great time, you said. I'm never going out in public again. Never. God. Oh my God. Oh. Leo! Leo!
Today on Rescue 911. Real stories, real heroes. A quick response unit airlifts a little girl to safety.
I knew that they were the people who could help where I really couldn't.
Watch a real-life ER trauma team struggle to save her life. Plus, when a bungling burglar gives Santa a run for his money,
Why is he in your chimney, Al?
he winds up stuck between a rock and a fireplace.
We did get some very good pictures.
On Rescue 911.
Rescue workers live in a world of extreme highs and lows. They begin each day not knowing whether it will bring the joy of saving a life or the emptiness of losing one. This story is not a recreation. It's a look at the caring medical professionals in Idaho Falls, Idaho. September 3rd, 1993, 7:05 p.m. A call comes in reporting a 6-year-old hit by a car while riding her bike. The accident occurred in front of the home of Vicki Evans, who happens to be a paramedic.
I heard the thud and saw the little girl flying away from the car onto the cement. The police measured it and told me that she had flown 39 feet. She was not conscious, and I kept her on her side so that the vomitus would go out of her mouth and not get down into her airway. By this time, the quick response unit from Shelley had arrived, and I said, I'm a paramedic with the Idaho Falls Fire Department, and I want oxygen, and I want a backboard, and I want your suction now.
She was never conscious. I got there, and she was never conscious.
After we got her in the ambulance, her mother arrived, and I could see her looking for any sign of hope that she was okay.
The little girl's mother, Brenda Price, was at home a block away when she heard the sirens.
Nobody was making any promises that she was going to be okay. I didn't want to get in their way because I knew that they were the people who could help where I really couldn't.
We're going to put on board the ship and we're going to fly you to hospital. Have you got someone to take you to the hospital? Yes. Why don't you go ahead and start there now?
6-year-old Jenna is taken to the Air Idaho Rescue helicopter under the care of flight nurse Margaret McGill.
My secondary assessment, her abdomen was firmer than the first time I examined it. She probably was bleeding inside. We've got to get her to a hospital that can operate on her now.
When we continue.
With children, a lot of times that
really is all we do. Call us at 1-800.
See how final expense coverage can help you. There's no obligation. Call 800-403-7817. That's 800-403-7817.
Meet Victoria, the humble actress.
All the most beautiful people in the world move to LA to become stars, leaving behind in their wake beauty voids for the rest of us to fill.
Hot in Cleveland. Weeknights at 6 p.m. Eastern on Get TV.
Among those treating the little girl during the flight is medic Doran Howard.
She was slowing down a lot, and we needed to get as much oxygen on board as we could. Then her abdomen distended, and then we knew she was starting to go into shock.
At Eastern Idaho Regional Medical Center, emergency physician Jeff Stiglitz takes over her care.
It was clear that she had a more serious injury than just a head injury, and we became concerned that she was in shock, which is a situation where not enough blood flow was going to the various parts of the body. She was very pale, and her pulse was very rapid, and her blood pressure was low.
Okay, let's go ahead and get x-ray and start getting that. Chest x-ray and a pelvis, is that what you're going to do? She's fine, Jeff?
Nurse Ruth Ann Reichert, director of Air Idaho Rescue, is also a member of the trauma team.
with children, a lot of times they'll hold steady, and then all of a sudden the bottom will drop out. And she just looked like one of those people where that was going to happen soon.
Somebody standing on this.
Okay. Okay, you ready with the tube?
I like to involve the parents as much as I can, no matter how bad it is.
Mama loves you.
So she was recording a colonoscopy initially.
Uncle Gary, we all love you, and these people can take care of you.
Even though she was unconscious, she could hear, because when they asked her, you know, if she wanted to see her mother, she opened her eyes.
It hurt a little bit, but you're gonna be okay.
She is in hemorrhagic shock. There's no time to do a CAT scan of her head at this time. We're going to have to take her up to the operating room. Dr. Richards is going to open her abdomen and stop that bleeding.
Surgeon Jim Richards is in charge of Jenna's team of doctors.
She had a ruptured spleen and a moderate amount of blood in the abdominal cavity. The spleen was removed, and the bleeding controlled from that injury. But in addition, she had a very, very large area of hemorrhage around the left kidney.
It's really quite extensive, extending all the way up and down the patient's entire left side, and it does cross the midline and go into the pelvis. The debate is whether we should open this or not. I'm inclined not to open it because if we can stabilize her and make sure it's not continuing to bleed, we'd have the chance to do more diagnostic assessment.
Which means she'll have to come out of the operating room, go down to the CAT scan. They'll look at her brain at that time. Typically with something like this where she had such a rapid loss of consciousness, it would just be a blood clot in the brain area, and sometimes they can evacuate that. And sometimes it's just a big blow to the head and there's nothing they can do surgically.
Try to keep her head still, okay?
Ooh.
So far, each picture is looking basically normal. Third ventricle is right square in the midline, so that means there's no swelling on either side, which is good. I'm really pretty optimistic about a good recovery of consciousness in terms of the brain injury. Hi, well, we've got some good news for you. We just completed the scans on the head and the neck, and they're okay. So that means there's no bleeding in the head. We're not going to have to do any brain surgery. She still may need some more surgery.
It didn't matter what physical condition, I would take my baby alive. I just felt a lot of peace there.
Things are getting better, and so far so good is the best way to look at it.
At that point, they CAT scanned the abdomen as well, which showed them that the kidney was in even worse shape than the spleen. So they didn't even try to repair it. They just took it out.
How you doing, honey? You be okay? She's waking up, and I think that's encouraging, and I really feel that we've covered a lot of territory since last evening. We just need to anticipate that over the next day or so we can probably get her off the ventilator and let her tell us what she thinks about all this. I suspect we'll both get Scotch blessings.
The day after the accident, neighbor Vicki Evans stops by to see Jenna.
Much of the best to you guys, but there's just no way to say thank you for saving a child, you know?
But I'm glad I was there. I'm glad I was there. If it made a difference, I'm glad I was there.
So am I.
How's she doing today?
She's doing pretty good. She's getting better every day.
Does she recognize everybody good and everything?
Jenna, this is a friend. This is Vicki.
Hi, Jenna. How are you doing today? You doing okay? Well, this is a heck of a place to be, isn't it, Jenna? This isn't fun at all, is it?
This is Vicki. She lives in the greenhouse on the corner. She was there when Jenna got into the accident.
I was very gratified that I had been trained to the point that I was able to react appropriately for the situation without even thinking about it, because when it happened, I was scared to death. And I'm going to go and let you rest now. It's good to see you. I hope you do really well, okay?
I really feel like God was really looking out for Jenna to have Vicki there, because she could get things going. She was the first one there, and she could just look out for my baby girl.
If you need anything, you let us know, okay?
Anybody who's willing to give that and put themselves under that kind of stress to save other people's lives, they're just special kind of people.
Though the problem was not visible during the CAT scan, Jenna K. Price suffered a traumatic brain injury. Her recovery has been slow.
Jenna has had to go through some intensive physical therapy to rehabilitate her to where she can use her arms and her legs again like she did before. She's always been very spunky, and it's good to see her want to get out there and get moving and do what everybody else is able to do. Okay. I think that spirit of hers really keeps her going.
I like to make snowmen and throw snowballs at my mom and my sister.
Hey, how come you're ganging up on Mom? As a single parent, I've told my girls that no matter what comes along, it doesn't matter because we can get through it as long as we hold together.
When Jenna was in the hospital, I held her hand and I remember reading her books. I would turn my engine to always look both ways and to
go kind of slow and wear a white helmet.
We had an amazing amount of support from our community. In December, I wrote a letter telling them thank you and suggesting to them that buying a bike helmet for the child for Christmas would be a truly loving gift.
If I had the accident after Christmas, I would have been wearing my bike helmet. It is important to wear a bike helmet so you don't crack your head open.
You ready to go in? And warm up and dry off? I am just so grateful that Jen is getting better. She brings a lot of joy to people. I think that God was saving her for a special reason.
Next.
I said, honey, somebody's at the door. There must be a problem. I ran to the front door. By the time I got to the door, then I realized it was.
Three at their home in Oceanside, California. Margie Beavers and her husband Lawrence found out that not everyone embraces the symbols of Christmas in the same way.
I went to bed about 11:30 after the news went off and kept squirming and wiggling around, so I thought, well, I'll get up and take some aspirins. That will probably relax me. I just started to doze off and I heard this banging, and then I reached over and shook my husband. I said, honey, somebody's at the door. There must be a problem. Somebody's in trouble. Get up quick.
We're coming.
I ran to the front door thinking that that was somebody banging on my door. And then by the time I got to the door, I didn't even get the door open. Then I realized the voice was not outside. The voice was in the house.
911 emergency? Yes, I have somebody that just come down my chimney. They're hanging upside down inside our house. 414 South Distance.
Oceanside Police Dispatcher Laura Harris took the call.
I was trying to picture this in my mind, and it wasn't really coming. It was kind of like, well, what's he doing there? Why is he in your chimney, you know?
You know, for this person here, I have no idea. It just scared us to death, woke us up, and he's stuck. He's stuck in there, thank God.
Most of the time when someone calls up and says, there's a man in my house, he broke into my house, we have to run out and chase him all over the neighborhood. Well, this guy was there for the pickings.
What are you doing in my fireplace? I said, what are you doing in my fireplace? And he says, I'm Santa Claus. What do you think? And so I said, well, I don't think so. I don't see any presents. And I know I've been good.
Lieutenant Reggie Grigsby was the watch commander that night.
She handed me this call, and I took a look at it. You have to excuse me. But it was a real struggle to remain a professional and get that call out.
Less than a mile from the scene, police officer Catherine Held was on patrol.
When I first heard the call, I was like, right, probably an animal. Tonight, this just didn't sound right.
The police were coming. His arms was just flying everywhere, and he was talking nonstop. He never shut up talking.
Are you armed?
No, I'm not armed.
Are you sure?
I'm not sure of anything. My legs are broken.
Honey, I'm
not
not
sure.
I said, I'm going to go stand on the porch to make sure the police know which house to come to, because I was so frightened. I wanted them to hurry up and get in here and get this guy out of here.
As I arrived, there was the reporting party, Miss Beavers, out on the front porch waving and screaming, help, help, he's in the chimney, he's in the chimney.
Come on, Mr. Hurry.
As I get into the house, I look around at this chimney, and there's this guy hanging upside down, yelling and screaming. And I'm thinking, where's Candid Camera? I know there's a camera somewhere around here.
Hold on, I'll get somebody.
Officer Held called the fire department in to extricate the prowler as police officer Brad Hunter arrived on the scene.
As soon as I walked inside the house, I just turned and looked at everybody else and started laughing.
Are you all right? No, I'm not all right. I'm stuck.
I asked him.
During the questioning, I asked him what he was going to do once he got into the house, and he quickly looked at me and responded, "I was going to steal the piano."
The Oceanside Fire Department responded to the call.
Get me out of here.
Hey, listen, we
Don't walk away from me.
This guy's obviously a little bit off the wall. I wasn't gonna crawl into the chimney and try to lift him out.
When Fire Captain Jim Myers arrived, he took charge of the extrication.
Hey guys, I'm stuck in here.
Oh, man. I was kind of dumbfounded. I wasn't too sure what to do with him.
Just get me out of here. I'm stuck. Terry, go ahead and get Dave and go ahead.
I had a crew come in and ladder the roof, take a look in the chimney to see what our options were from the top. Didn't appear to be any easy way to get him out of there. I decided to call for the rescue truck.
The Beavers, they were scared and concerned that this man had entered their house while they were sleeping.
What's your name? Santa Claus. Santa Claus.
I think when they saw that the officers and the fire department had kind of a sense of humor, they also began to lighten up and joke around about it, to the point where Mrs. Beaver went and got her camera so she could take pictures to send to her grandchildren, to her relatives.
Smile! Smile! Come on, it's early.
He was not very happy about this. The burglar wasn't. He kept saying, "Yeah, make a joke out of my being in misery here hanging in this fireplace. Make a joke out of it." But we did get some very good pictures.
When rescue arrived, they determined that the only solution was to break the chimney apart.
So we had a guy on either side, and they had some chisels and some sledgehammers, and they started chipping away at the blocks and pulling them out hand by hand and waiting for them to come on out.
Ow! One more.
I kept thinking he needs a drink of water, but I couldn't figure out how to get water to him with him upside down. And he talked so much, so I know he must have been thirsty.
Guys, you know, I've heard of it confidence in my life.
All the time it was going on, he kept hollering, "Hurry up, I'm hurting, and you guys are slow, you guys are incompetent, you guys don't know what you're doing." Got to be a little bit of a pain in the neck. We're working on it. He didn't like the speed with which we're working.
Hold on. Ow! I got it.
You know, you guys are the worst.
Thank you.
You'd think you could get me out of here by
Can you be
now.
quiet for a second?
Yeah, I'm glad, yeah.
48 years I've been hearing about Santa Claus coming down a chimney, and you've never heard about really someone going down a chimney. It's just incredible that someone would have the nerve to try to do something like that.
Okay, hold on. Let's put pressure on. Okay, I got it.
When they finally got the last brick that was holding him in place, just one brick was holding him there, he finally just slipped on right on out of the fireplace. There was not much to it at all.
Yeah, but now that
Kinda
he's
like
out of
Dora
the
Baby.
fireplace, they're gonna put him in jail. They're gonna put the handcuffs on him and
Once they
arrest
got him
him.
out, they went to arrest him. He decided to fight us. He wasn't real appreciative that we got him out of this chimney.
What are you doing?
Come on.
What are you doing?
Well, Sam, it's time to go take a slow ride.
The guy
Must be at their home in Oceanside, California. Margie Beavers and her husband Lawrence found out.
For Christmas, I thought we would have a Christmas card made with this guy hanging upside down. And on the inside, I'm going to just say, just drop in any time from the Beavers. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas from the Beavers and Rescue 911.
This is 911. Do you have an emergency?
Today on Rescue 911. In a remote tropical forest, a missionary's mule missteps
We didn't even know the cliff was there.
and plunges to the jungle floor below.
How are we gonna get her out of here?
There are no roads into these areas.
Plus, a deadly river collision
I remember seeing Alex in the water face down.
could put a boy in a watery grave.
I remember him having blood coming out of both ears.
On Rescue 911.
Christmas, I thought we would have a Christmas card made with this guy hanging upside down. And on the inside, I'm gonna just say, just drop in any time from the Beavers. Merry Christmas.
Meow.
This is 911. Do you have an emergency?
Today on Rescue 911. In a remote tropical forest, a missionary's mule missteps
We didn't even know the cliff was there.
and plunges to the jungle floor below.
How are we gonna get her out of here?
There are no roads into these areas.
Plus, a deadly river collision
I remember seeing Alex in the water face down.
could put a boy in a watery grave.
I remember him having blood coming out of both ears.
On Rescue 911.
In our most desperate moments, it takes strong faith to keep hope alive. We begin in a remote jungle area of south central Mexico. In February of 1992, Maryland dentist Jim Ray, his wife Karen, and their 8-year-old son Billy were on a goodwill mission to bring much needed care to the local Indians, never once expecting that they would become the ones in need.
I go on mission trips. I feel a calling to do that, to take some time off and to try to help other people. The people are wonderful down there. And we go to very remote villages where they seldom see any type of medical personnel. There are no roads into these areas. There are trails, you can take rivers, you have to hike.
Louise Slammers was one of the missionaries on the trip.
We knew we had quite a walk, and we saw some real nice rivers, lots of flowers, very jungle-like area. We knew, of course, that there's always a risk to doing work like this.
My wife, she was very enthusiastic about going. Billy, we left the decision up to him, and he decided that he would like to go with us.
When we left the village, it was sort of like a long dirt road, no jungle on either side. The trail was about like 2 iguanas wide.
Ruth Brooks was the group's dental technician.
The first couple of hours we were walking, I was like, we can't do much more of this. It was really hot. And the Indians, they passed us, they just run by.
I have horses at home, and you couldn't take horses over these trails. Only mules, burros could keep their footing going up and down these trails because it just gets too treacherous.
We came to a big grassy area where there were 4 like paths coming together like an intersection. So I named that the Mule Intersection.
We got to a point where it was a really steep incline, and I just remember looking up and thinking, another hill to climb.
Karen had been walking for quite a ways, and she had some shortness of breath because she has some asthma problems. You easily feel at home with her, so you share experiences quite quickly. And we also had built a friendship, actually, which was unforgettable. It was very narrow because we were walking single file, and at that point, the vegetation's so thick, you don't know how far down it is.
We didn't even know the cliff was there because there was a lot of trees and stuff.
We went up maybe a couple 100 yards, something like that, and Karen was behind us riding the mule.
Mule started to lose its balance and misstep the rocks. Then she couldn't hold on anymore. She fell quite deep, which we didn't realize right away.
I just kept thinking, this can't have happened.
Oh my God. It was a terrible drop. At that point, I ran back down, and she was down off the cliff, and I thought she was dead.
When we continue,
We're going to get help, and we will be taking her back to a village that took us a rough day to get into. There are no doctors, there are no clinics. What do we do there?
If you can't pick your family, you might as well laugh about it.
$27.99. Optima tax relief.
while on a mission of goodwill in an isolated area of Mexico, more than 100 miles from the nearest doctor, Karen Ray fell off a cliff, plunging to the jungle floor below. Her husband, Jim, ran down to try to help her.
Ve por ayuda, está ahí un doctor y unas gentes que ayuden. Alguien de rescate.
I saw her move, and I knew she wasn't dead. And I could see that there was blood all over her head and on the jungle floor.
I was just thinking, it had taken us 2 days to get there, and how are we going to get her out of here?
I saw that my mom was really badly hurt. At that point, I began to get really scared.
I took the antibiotics and I dumped them in the water, and I poured it in the wound to try to clean it as best we could. And I just held her head for a period of time. But she kept asking if we could go home. And I told her yes. But I didn't know how.
The Indians decided to run to the village for help to carry her.
I actually had a fear that maybe she'd be paralyzed because she couldn't move her legs.
The girls are going to go back with Louise. I want you to go back with them, okay?
Billy didn't want to go back early, but the Indians move so fast. When they get here with help, they're probably going to move very fast and leave us behind.
I went back with 2 Indians, and one of the Indians ran ahead.
She kept saying, my back is broken. But my biggest concern at that point was the head wound. I was very concerned about swelling in the brain because she took quite a blow. I'm thinking, okay, we're going to get help to carry her out of this situation, but we will be taking her back to a village that took us a rough day to get into. What do we do there? There are no doctors, there are no clinics, there are no phones, there are no communications whatsoever. There are no roads to that village. I did know that they had a grass landing strip for a bush plane, but this was Sunday, and they don't fly on Sunday. I felt totally helpless. A lot of villagers came back. They cut down balsa trees, and they didn't have ropes, so they used vines to make a stretcher.
Okay.
We spread a bedroll out right next to her, gently rolled her away from the bedroll, and rolled her back on it.
Very easy, very easy. Take your time, take your time. Más para allá, más para allá. Con cuidado, ten cuidado de sacudirla.
We just kept trying to comfort her about the back problem. I don't think she felt the head wound at all. Even though they were carrying her, they were still moving very fast. And I was trying to keep up, and I couldn't, and they were getting further and further away from me. There were 4 river crossings. What the Indians did was they simply plunged right in the shortest way. And to see them carrying her across this river was remarkable. Crossings, what the Indians did was they simply plunged right in the shortest way. And to see them carrying her across this river was remarkable. At one point, they stopped to tighten the hammock and the stretcher because it was really bowing. And they laid her down on the ground, and they stopped and they laid hands on her, and they prayed. It was the only time that I heard her stop groaning. It was the longest day of my life. Constantly trying to figure out what we can do, praying about it, hoping for a miracle.
It was not a custom for that plane to be there. It happened to be flying in the area, and they called it down, which was a real blessing for us.
It was an incredible miracle that the plane was there. This missionary has been there for 25 years. He has never known it to fly in on a Sunday. It just doesn't happen. And yet here it was.
There was like villagers just lined up all around the side, like standing in the shade. Some of them were just crying.
The kids were really excited because when the plane left, then they all started running in the wind because they don't have wind there.
Less than 5 hours after Karen's fall, she was on her way to Tuxtepec, the nearest town with a doctor, more than 100 miles away. Once there, she was taken to Dr. Paulino Garcia's clinic.
I was worried because we weren't sure of the degree of her injuries. We definitely knew there was a problem with her pelvis, but we didn't know to what extent. I wasn't sure if she would be able to walk again. I had to call my colleague in Veracruz, a neurosurgeon. I explained what had happened, and he told me precisely what I needed to do to avoid a cerebral edema. So we administered steroids to arrest any possible swelling of the brain. It was very important for us to monitor her condition over the first 72 hours. We saw that she was improving very well, and that encouraged us and her family.
In the 2 years since the accident, Karen Ray has been recovering from her fractured pelvis and nerve damage from the back injury she suffered as a result of the fall.
It's a slow recuperation and probably won't be 100% again, but, you know, I'm just so fortunate to have had the care that I had.
Hey, Ross, come here, buddy. The missionary said that this is an opportunity for these Indians to turn around and give help back. And they really did. They turned out, they did everything they could. It has confirmed our faith in people. It has strengthened our faith in God.
Dr. Garcia is just an incredible gentleman. He was just such a kind man. I'm really touched that somehow he came into my life.
What was really amazing, he didn't charge us anything. Except for maybe a couple of antibiotics was like, in American money, they'd probably be about $1 for like 5 days in clinic.
I wouldn't have traded that day in the jungles for anything in the world. It's a very humbling experience to think you're going to go help people, and it gets totally turned around, and you are the recipient of all the help. That's very humbling.
Jim plans to return to the remote jungle villages of Mexico to return the kindness of the Chinanteco Indians and continue his mission of goodwill.
I'm looking forward to seeing them again because they really pour it all out from the heart. And I know that if physically she is able to, Karen would like to do it again.
If I could speak in Chinanteco dialect, I'd probably say thank you for saving my mom's life.
Next.
It was so fast. I'd never seen anything like that before. I just knew that someone was hurt. There had to be someone hurt.
Meet Professor Shatner, Pirate Shat.
I think this next segment of Rescue 911 is called Wave Runner Down. So they
shattering stretch marks, even tattoos magically disappear. With Body Coverage Perfector, you no longer have to worry about these problems. Call or go to trywestmore.com right now and instantly transform the appearance of your skin for just $49.95. Order in the next 4 minutes and we'll take off another $10. That's right, you pay just $39.95 for this breakthrough body camouflage and illuminator in one. But this offer is about to get even better. Order right now and you'll receive 2 free gifts. You'll get our 60-second eye effect firming gel, a $29 value free. You'll also get our lasting effects brow gel, a $23 value free. That's over a $100 value when you order now for the amazing price of just $39.95. Try it for a full 60 days, and if you don't love your results, send it back for a full refund of the purchase price, even if the tube is empty. But keep the 60-second eye effects and lasting effects brow gel as Mackenzie's gift to you.
I promise you that when you try this product, it's going to give you gorgeous, flawless skin. And more importantly, it's going to give you your confidence back.
Call 1-800-652-0933
or go online to trywestmore.com and we'll include shipping absolutely free. This offer is not available in any stores. Don't wait.
Call 1-800-652-0933
or go to trywestmore.com right now.
And on the 7th day, we were given Walker. Walker, Texas Ranger. Now every Sunday from 6 to 10 p.m. Eastern on Get TV.
began on August 13th, 1992, in Lewiston, Idaho, where 18-year-old Alex Bayless and his friend Eric Frensdorf were spending the afternoon together riding wave runners on the Snake River.
Alex and I, we've probably known each other probably since, like, I'd say third grade at least. We always kind of hung out together with all the other guys.
Alex had asked me if it was all right if he took the wave runners out that day for Eric's birthday. And I said, not a problem. And I remember him going down the hallway, and he'd gone by my door, and I hollered, Alex, came back, what? And I said, hey, I love you, son. He said, love you too, Dad. And that was the last that I saw or heard from Alex until the call from the deputy sheriff.
Another group of kids from the same high school were water skiing on the river that afternoon, including 18-year-old Cameron Miller.
We saw Alex and Eric. I wasn't like best friends with them, but I knew them well. Lauren was water skiing, and they had been behind her, and she had gotten scared because it made her nervous having people behind her. The river was very calm. There weren't very many people out, and Alex and Eric, they wanted us to go slow to jump the wakes. When you go slow, the wakes of the boat are very large, especially right near the engine.
Including age spots, veins, birthmarks, bruises, dull, crepey skin.
Okay, I'm not going to do any more Rescue 911 episodes until later. Later on today. Let's see. What time is it? It must be 12:26. Oh, it's only 12:18. Oh, they got some Food Paradise in Ketchup, as well as Triple D, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. Okay, for more full Rescue 911 videos, as well as Flipper videos, hit the big red button and subscribe. Peace out, YouTube. I'm going to click on Finish Event now.